First of all, I want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters and the grand predecessors and predecessors to have this opportunity to talk about this. Well, the continuation is basically it's from this book, right? This is the 10 Admonitory sermons from Lao-Mu, which is God, to her children. So we're all God's children, and this is like you can say it's a scripture, okay? So God's direct teaching to us. And so this is the seventh one in the series. There are a total of 10. Okay, so in this one, you can kind of basically say it's talking. If I want to summarize it, it's kind of talking about cultivation or how we cultivate a little bit. Okay. Okay, so it starts off saying this: the natural, mysterious, and seamless golden lock to the portal of our pagoda has been locked for 60,000 years. Okay, only the heavenly decreed seamless key can unlock it. This seamless key is the initiation by the heavenly decreed enlightening master. This grace is so great, with the initiation performed by our enlightening teacher, the most valuable treasure will then be able to manifest its original glory through this heavenly portal. Okay, so when we receive that, it says the initiation, right? We say receiving that Tao blessing, or that is that initiation where basically that key, that it's an invisible key that opens up the invisible lock. Okay, so that is our third eye, known as the third eye or wisdom eye, right? Or we call it the heavenly portal. So that's the first of the three treasures, and only through opening that portal can we, in essence, return to heaven or transcend the cycle of reincarnation, cycle of life and death. Okay, so it is through God's mercy, through the mercy of the Buddhas, that we can do that, right? Especially what we call the enlightening teacher, which is one of the Buddhas. So here, this is kind of one drawing of our holy teacher, Jigong Living Buddha. Okay, so in the main temple, there's the three statues. The one in the middle is Maitreya Buddha, Happy Buddha, we all know. Now, Maitreya Buddha, he's responsible for, you can say, all the heavenly affairs, all the affairs during this time period that we're in. Okay, so in the past it was Sakyamuni Buddha, okay, for the last 3,000 years. So now it's Maitreya Buddha, Happy Buddha. But then the other two Buddhas are what we call our holy teachers, our enlightening teachers, okay, because they're the ones who are responsible for this transmission or the propagation of the Tao, through that you get through the initiation or the receiving that Tao blessing. Okay, so they have a great responsibility, especially now we are in a period of what we call universal salvation, right? Of not only just universal salvation, but of the three realms, okay, the three worlds. Okay, so I think I might mention that. Basically, in the past, right, the way, like all the religions, they started off with either a saint or sage, or, someone, or you might call a prophet. They were all teaching about this truth. This one, you can say it's a one universal truth, okay? What we call the Tao, all right? So that is the universal truth. And the problem is the universal truth is beyond language, right? So it's beyond culture, it's beyond tradition, all of that. And so you have, in the various different traditions or the cultures, you have these various saints, sages who are teaching that same truth, but because of differences in language and culture, it's slightly different. Okay, or it sounds on the surface, it appears a little bit different. All right, but that's because due to the limitations, you can say, of our language. Okay, because language is it is limited. Okay, we can't, sometimes we have difficulty trying to use the right words, right, to express that whatever it is. And so obviously there's that limitation, and therefore, because that truth is beyond how we can, even our thoughts, normal conscious thoughts, it's inevitable that language, all these various religious traditions will seem different. It's like trying to describe if I asked you, how would you describe God, right? Everyone would describe maybe with using different words, different ways of describing God. It's the same thing because it's just beyond what we can imagine even. And so everyone, depending on the backgrounds of people, their culture, language, they would be they would be taught maybe slightly differently, okay? But they're still teaching the same message, okay? The underlying message, that underlying truth, the essence is the same. And that's the key. So we have to kind of go beyond the surface, right? So a lot of, in religion, so this kind of talks a little bit about the difference between kind of like current religious practice and versus what we talk about here. In religious practice, unfortunately, because they've been transferred for thousands of years, they've kind of lost the essence, the true meaning. Okay, you can say they lost that significance or the true meaning behind the teaching, the truth. And so it ends up being, it's the scripture that's the word of God and that is it. And so they take it, it's worse when they take it literally, because a lot of times it's not literal. It's either, metaphorical or something like that. So we can't just get stuck on the words, okay? Because the words are not the truth, okay? The words themselves, they just point us towards the truth. And to recognize that truth requires our wisdom. We need that wisdom inside, okay? So the wisdom, that's how we can become enlightened, right? To become enlightened, it's not, yes, all these teachings, the scriptures, we use those scriptures to help us to try to become enlightened, okay? But ultimately, just reading those words themselves aren't going to do that. So it's inside. And, we have to practice, go through cultivation, try to, they also try to tell us to let go of the forms, okay? Let go of these attachments to forms. So we become attached to the words. When we become attached to the words, then it becomes, it essentially becomes dogmatic, okay? So we just, this is it. It can't be anything else, right? But this is not it. This is not, so like in a court of law, right? We say you have to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, right? Well, this is the truth. The words kind of describe the truth, but it's not the whole truth, okay? Because you can't, it's impossible. That's why there's so many different scriptures in all these different religions, right? And it may not be, the third one either, nothing but the truth, because, there are always people's interpretation that goes into it, all right? So individual interpretations, then, depending on how people interpret it, so that's why you can have what we call these kind of those who deviate from that truth. You have cults, right? Which start off with the same, they use the same scriptures, but then they interpret it differently, right? So that we have to, all of those we have to be wary of, and we have to use our wisdom, really, to differentiate what's true and what is not, okay? So, but the key here is that to attain, you can say, what do you want, salvation, okay? To transcend this cycle of life and death, we do need, in this case, is the Buddha, there are enlightening teachers to open up that door for us or transmit with that three treasures. Ultimately, though, what we do require, we have to, that's just like one step, okay, one step. And it's the most important step. It's like opening the door, okay, opening up the door for us, unlocking that door, but the door's open. If we don't walk through that door, walk down that path, then it's kind of useless too. It's kind of wasted, right? So that's why cultivation is very important. That's the path of cultivation. We receive that blessing, we open up that door, but then we have to continue along that path to reach that goal, right? If we don't cultivate, why that's so important is because we carry with us a lot of karmic burdens, karmic debts, okay? What in some religions I'll say is the sins, okay? So the sins from the past, they're following us, and so we have to repay those debts, whatever they are. And the only way to repay those debts, yes, we have to, anytime we make mistakes, we commit sins, we have to repent. That's a very important aspect. Repent, but not just repent, but then, true repentance means we don't repeat those commit those sins or offenses again, right? But then, okay, that's going forward. And then we also have to kind of make up for the ones we did in the past. And so the only way to do that is to perform merits, okay? Merits are very important. We do good deeds. We help others, especially do it in a way that's not, without motive, definitely without selfish motive, okay? So we do it because it's the right thing. It comes from our true heart, okay, that we do good for others. We benefit others. And then also, that's kind of the outside. The inside also. So there are always these two aspects, the external and the internal. The external is how we deal with other people and situations, etc. The internal is our own cultivation of our virtues. Okay, so those two things are the key to clearing out our karmic debts and our sins. Okay, so that's important. So it's not just, I come, receive the blessing, and my life is going to be, I'm going to have good fortune, etc. It won't happen unless we actually put in the effort, right? So I mean, we can ask God, we can ask the Buddhas and saints to help us as much as we want, but unless we do something to help ourselves, right? It's not gonna do it. It won't help us, right? So basically, there's a saying, right? God only helps those who help themselves. So we have to learn what we need to do to help ourselves. Then it's only natural that God, the Buddhas, can help us, right? Okay. But anyways, this is the key, and it's very, it's this great treasure. So once we realize that we have this true nature, this Buddha nature, okay, so basically this is really, the initiation is pointing out also to us that we have that, what we call that Buddha nature, that true nature, or that divine nature, or that Christ nature. We are because we're all children of God. So are made of the same nature, okay? And so we can become like that. So Jesus or Buddha, right? They were human beings too, right? Just like us. But they ultimately achieved nirvana, right? Ultimately achieved Buddhahood. Why? They become awakened, right? That's the first step, is to awaken to the truth, to realize that this life in this world is not really true, in the sense that it's constantly changing. It's not everlasting, right? It's every life, or even in one lifetime, things are constantly changing. We cannot maintain the same state all the time. But we're also, because of our desires, because of our attachments, we create more karma, right? We commit sins, and because of that, it becomes a vicious cycle, right? That's what reincarnation is that vicious cycle due to the karma that we create. Okay, so it's important to break that cycle, to become, the first step is to learn what it is that causes us to do that, right? So Buddha talks about the Four Noble Truths, which tell us what life is about, right? That life is suffering, okay, to put it simply, is dukkha, suffering, that we create that suffering through our desires and attachments. Okay, that's the second. And then the third is that there is a way to, that there can be an end to that. We can end that suffering, or end this cycle of suffering. And the fourth is to, there's a way to do that. There's follow that path, which is the Eightfold Noble Path, is how Buddha talks about it. Okay, but anyways, the path of cultivation, all right, so that we can do that. All right, but anyways, I think you'll talk later on about, why this is such a great opportunity, such a great big grace from heaven to allow us to transcend this cycle. Okay, all right. All right, next. Okay, so it says, I'm going to tell you the seventh admonitory sermon. However, before uttering a word, sad tears have already covered my face. That is because I am much concerned about my children who have got lost in the secular world and still do not know how to awaken. Right? We talk about awakening. Sorrow stays with me day and night, and I'm extremely sad and missing my children with a broken heart. So it's just like any mother would miss their children, her children, right? God, same thing. We've left God for so long. We've been in this world, reincarnating for so long. We forgot. We thought this is our home. This is where we belong. But this is not really where we belong. We should really be back in heaven, be back with God, okay, or Lao-Mu, right? So actually, it has no effect on me whether my children will awaken or not. I'm just worried that you will fall into a great calamity due to ignorance. Okay, so therefore you need to take my advice and quickly awaken from confusion. Set right your mind and cultivate yourself to protect and maintain this heavenly decree so that you can realize my mind, or God's mind. Always remember the gratitude, the grace of heaven, and the virtues of holy teachers so that you can become the wise and talented personnel for God. So I just mentioned, we have to awaken. So in essence, the initiation is kind of our awakening, okay? It variously, life, the sages describe life as being a dream, okay? So we're living in a dream. Why? Because it's ephemeral. When you wake up, it's not there anymore, okay? So everything in life, even though it seems real, yes, it's tangible. It's very tangible. But it doesn't last, okay? So, yeah, even though, so the richest, today, I don't know, the richest man in the world is probably Amazon, yeah, Bezos, right, Bezos? Okay, so, but it doesn't last, right? He can't take it with him when he dies, so nothing lasts, and so it's really kind of a question of what we make of this life. What good can we do in this life? And if we do it in a way that's not selfish, right? It's not for ourselves, it's for other people, for everyone else benefit, then you're like a saint, a sage, or like a Buddha, right? Or a Christ, who really are very, they have no self, no ego, right? They've gotten rid of the ego, no sense of self. And so it's then, wow, look at that. So they, over these thousands of years, people revere them. They worship them. Okay, so that just shows it lasts, the test of time that they have, because they have virtue, okay? Virtues and merits. So that is what really counts. I mean, we don't remember thousands of years ago who was the richest man, right? No one cares really. so that's not important, right? So in this secular world, the mundane world, I mean, today, unfortunately, society, it's how we're brought up, education, everything, it's all about material things, right? Gain, all these material things. That's, the more you have, the more powerful you are, the better you are, etc. But that's wrong. Okay, so that's not the right approach, because then that just leads to greed, leads to contention, conflict, right? So the true principles of the Tao is kind of the opposite, really. Is kind of let go of these things. It doesn't mean that we can't make. I mean, of course, we have to survive, right? So we do what we can to survive, but we don't need to overdo it. We don't need to get greedy. Just whatever, there are a lot of people who are very happy, content with what they have, even though it's not a lot, right? And that is really how it should be, okay? It's not more. In this society, yeah, it's all about more. But the more we have, that's the more baggage we're carrying with us. If we can't let go of it, we can't leave this world. We can't go back. We're going to be stuck in that cycle. All right, so we have to let go of the baggage. Okay, so God, Lao-Mu is, wants us to awaken. Of course, seeing us just like the Buddhas. When the Buddhas see us, they see, wow, it's a very sad state of affairs in the human world, that we're all pursuing the wrong things, and we're all creating our own suffering, and we don't realize it. Okay, so we have to awaken to that fact, right? And then once we awaken, and we start taking this path, you can say the bright road, the bright path to heaven, if you want, or to transcend, then that means we're cultivating, we're cultivating our virtues, practicing, performing merits, helping others, being of benefit to others. Then we are essentially, helping heaven, right? Doing heaven's work, because God wants, everyone to be saved. Of course, that God doesn't want to see everyone suffering, all sentient beings. So we need to try to help enlighten, or guide others towards this path of enlightenment as well. Okay. All right. And of course, we have to be grateful. that we have this opportunity today to receive the blessing, receive the initiation. Yeah, I mean, that is, it's better than, winning a $1 billion lottery. Okay. And it only costs you like maybe $10, $20, whatever you're willing to give. And you can, because the $1 billion lottery, yeah, you get $1 billion, but, well, the tax, they take half of it away. But what you're left with, I mean, you can only do so much with it in this world. Okay. Yes, you can do good things. That's true. But ultimately, we still have to reincarnate. Okay. Unless we transcend, unless we are awakened by the holy teachers, the enlightening teachers. So that is, worth more than anything in this world, really. So that's something to think about. Right. I mean, do I want to stay in this world and not know what my next life is going to be like? Right. I can't guarantee that I'm going to have a better life next time. Receiving it's like a insurance policy, if you will. Okay. So, all right. Okay. So the next paragraph says, basically, what's the matter of greatest importance for sentient beings, for, living beings? It's life and death, right? Life and death, ultimately. I mean, it's all the little things that we encounter in life they're little compared to, when my life is in danger, right? When my life is threatened, then, that's the most important thing, right? The people who have a severe illness, they're afraid of dying. Okay, they'll give up anything to restore their health, right? Isn't that's so that comes down to that's the most important thing in life, right? So you have received Tao from heavenly decreed holy teachers to transcend the cycle of birth and death. This is such a great and infinite grace that is hard to repay even if you sacrifice yourself. Right? This grace is as high as the mountains and as deep as the ocean. You need to keep it in mind all the time. Without the initiation from holy teachers, how can you transcend the cycle of birth and death and be liberated from the sea of suffering? How can you stay away from calamities without being ruined? The Tao receiving from holy teachers can bring your ancestors up to heaven and shelter your descendants. All of this is dependent on your respected holy teachers to whom you are greatly indebted. Every one of you should repay this great grace, respect the holy teachers, and emphasize this truth or Tao. Follow the holy teachers' instructions and hold their will at hand and in your heart to fulfill your great vows. Okay. So, yeah, another, the way that Buddha's described this world is a bitter sea or a sea of suffering that we're in. And so we want to they want to save us from that. Okay. Again, this grace. So even if we sacrifice our life, yeah, it actually when we receive the Tao, the transmitting master will during the invocation will say some things. One thing it says that even a sacrifice of our own life, is hard to repay the grace of heaven, or the grace of be able to receive this initiation, this blessing from the holy teachers. Okay. Now, another benefit is not just to ourselves, right? Our ancestors also benefit. So when ultimately, if we cultivate and we return back, we leave this world, we transcend, our ancestors can also transcend with us. So it's really, that's the true honoring of our ancestors, okay? Helping them, right? Because they no longer are with us here. They cannot receive the initiation themselves, not directly. So they depend on us, really. They're looking to us to help them, all right? And then also our descendants all benefit as well, that it can shelter them from calamities, things like that. It'll help them as well. Okay, so that's why this is a big benefit, not just to us, but to our lineage, okay, our human bloodline, okay, it helped.
In the Dhamma class, holy teachers said more than 6,000 people benefit from us receiving the Tao and cultivating the Tao.
Yeah, 60,000, right. So, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, anyways, it's some big number of, our ancestors, right? They all benefit. So it's if we think about it that way, then it's, don't just think of ourselves, right? Think it's for them. Okay, so basically, so we have to. How do we repay that grace? Then is to try to, because our holy teachers, they, like I said earlier, they are the Buddhas that are responsible for the spreading of this Tao today, the truth. That we need to help them to spread that. I mean, obviously, they're not living with us in this physical world, so they depend on us to spread the truth. Okay, to spread this Tao to others. So those in our family, relatives, friends, coworkers, whoever that we feel if they have that interest to come and also receive the blessing. Because we're actually throwing them a lifeline, saving them. Okay, but they may not realize it. But in the end, they will be very grateful as well. So especially our parents, right? If our parents have not received, if we receive the Tao, but our parents have not, as part of our filial duty, okay, to our parents, we should try to get them to also receive the Tao. Now, if they have deceased, obviously, the more we cultivate, we perform merits, cultivate our virtues, that will benefit them as well. And if we have a lot of merits, then we can also, what we call, uplift them, or you can say resurrect, okay? But that's not probably not for everyone, but because it requires a lot of, performing a lot of merits. Performing merits, like bringing people to receive the Tao blessing, that's merits. Okay, that's one form of merit. Okay. All right. Okay, so. Okay, yeah. All right. And okay, so next it says if a Tao cultivator does not follow the holy teacher's instruction and violate their commands, he will be condemned by heaven and suffer seriously. His ancestors and descendants will be involved as well. Those who can follow the holy teacher's instructions, emphasize the heavenly Tao, and pledge to cultivate Tao can really become wise and virtuous. They say they use the term the five thunders. Okay, it's really basically like in the 10 Great Vows, right? When we receive the blessing, we have to agree to the 10 Great Vows, follow the 10 Great Vows. The 10 Great Vows essentially says, we want to cultivate, we want to be a good person, we not slander, or despise our predecessors or the Buddhas or the teachers. But ultimately, we don't want to, basically, the five thunders really, that's internal, it's our conscience will bother us in the end. Okay, so ultimately, we all have a conscience, right? Conscience comes from our Buddha nature, and that will bother us if we're doing the wrong thing, if we go against basically heaven's will or God's will. Okay, so besides, you need to learn to be mild, humble, respectful, and frugal. Right? Nurture the glory of great virtues so that people are happy to come closer to you. Make every effort on propagating Tao. Do well in human relationships to match the heavenly way, and emphasize ethics. Behave well with propriety, and be flexible but stick to moral principles. Lessen desires and be pure in mind. Have no distracting thoughts. Be tranquil and do things without expecting rewards. Be calm, composed, and righteous in behavior to show awesome dignity. Okay, so basically, Confucius talks a lot about, so we use the teachings of various saints and sages. Because again, as I said earlier, they're all talking about the same thing. Okay, so they talk about maybe different aspects or they emphasize different things, but they're all talking about ultimately the same truth. Okay, so in Confucius and the Analects, he talks about these five, you can say, characteristics or qualities, right? Being gentle or mild, being humble, being respectful, being frugal, so not being extravagant, and yielding. Okay, so these are kind of five basic qualities that we should all have as cultivators. And the Tao of humanity follows the Tao of heaven, right? So we say, so I want to learn how to become a Buddha, right? And maybe a lot of people think it's kind of, there's some special practice, right? Some special kung fu, right? But it's not like that, right? It's really the Tao of humanity. Okay, so that's, if we follow the Tao of humanity, because that is really heaven's way applied to humans. Okay, so basically, because we have that Buddha nature, that true nature, so we just follow those virtues, right? So Confucius talks about those virtues, the 5 constant virtues, right? Benevolence, righteousness, propriety, wisdom, and faith, or sincerity. Okay, these are basic qualities, virtues that we should all follow, and those are, you can say, a reflection or the way of heaven. Okay, so if we follow that, follow our conscience, then that is following the way of heaven, right? So we are, it says lessen our desires and be pure in mind. Okay, so again, those desires are pretty much always selfish. Okay, so again, that also means get rid of that self, get rid of that ego. Okay, so when we have that ego, right, it's very easy for us to, you can say, overcome or conquer others or situations, but it's very hard to overcome ourselves. Okay, so because of that ego, that sense of self, we create all sorts of things, karma, all sorts of obstacles for ourselves. And so we have to overcome that. That is our greatest enemy is ourselves, really, is our ego. Okay, so we have to overcome that. If we can overcome that, we can be successful in cultivation. All right. No distracting thoughts. Yeah. There's a practice, you can say there's a practice that we try to do is letting go of all karmic affinities, and not giving rise to a single thought. Okay, so it doesn't mean that we don't think. It just means that when situations arise, when we're dealing with people, we should not use our conscious mind to, well, usually what happens is we have a discriminating mind. Okay, we discriminate, or we say, oh, this person is good or is bad, or this situation, someone is doing something good or bad, that dualistic mind. So we have to kind of get out of that mode, right, of thinking that way. Say, it just is. Okay, it just is. What's the best way to make it better, make the situation better? Okay, that's really goal. So trying to get out of that dualism and into, you can say, kind of the absolute, because ultimately that we want to return to the absolute. In this world that we live in, it's in the yin yang, the tai chi. Everything is relative. Everything, it's that dualism. So, but we want to transcend that, right? So we want to transcend to reach the absolute. Okay. It doesn't mean there is an absolute right or absolute wrong. Anytime we think that way, then there's a problem. Okay, so we always just try to make the best of the situation, make it better. Don't make it worse. Okay. Be tranquil. So calm, always calm. Don't, anger or temperament. That's something that we need to work on. All right, that's one of the 3 poisons: anger or rage. Right, the 3 poisons is greed. Right. Anger or rage, and then also you can say ignorance or attachments. Okay, so we have to kind of work on getting rid of those as well. All right. Okay. All right. So a male cultivator, Tao cultivator, needs to be sincere and honest in the traditional 5 bonds of human relationships and stick to the 8 cardinal virtues in his daily behavior. A female Tao cultivator needs to follow the necessary ethics with her parents before her marriage and with her husband and children in her marriage. She needs to behave well according to the necessary female virtues in her appearance, housekeeping, and speech, not violate propriety and discipline as it might hurt her virtues. Confucius also talks about these 5 bonds or relationships that we all, we are a part of at least, one, if not more than one of these relationships, right? So husband, wife, between parents and children. Okay, we all have parents. We may not have children, but we all have parents. Between our siblings or peers. Between superior and subordinate. So any kind of relationship where it's like either in a country, you have the president, and then you have the citizens, or you have an employer and employee, that type of relationship, and then among friends. Okay, so these are the 5 basic relationships that we cannot. We always have at least one. So how we conduct ourselves in each of these types of relationships, what is proper in each relationship. Okay, so we have to maintain that. That's part of the propriety. The 8 cardinal virtues, right? Filial piety, brotherhood, or fraternity, brotherhood, loyalty or fidelity, right? Trust, trustworthiness, propriety, righteousness, integrity, and sense of shame. So these kind of 8 virtues that we need to be aware of and practice. Okay, so all right. So now, yeah, the Lao-Mu, God kind of differentiates between the male and the female. Of course, today, there's more of like because of, you can say, equality, right, between male and female. So a lot of everyone is kind of doing the same things, right? They or have the ability to do the same, play the same similar roles, right? So there's less of a differentiation today, but we still need to maintain that sense of propriety. Okay, so that sense of orderliness. It's not saying that one would be better than the other, right? So we don't look at it that way, but there is still differentiation or distinction. And so like in the temple, you'll notice that the male, female, we sit separately, right? When we do the bowing, right, it's also separate. Okay, so there's that sense of propriety. Okay. All right, so do things with a righteous heart, keep promises, and conduct kind and righteous deeds to establish perfect virtues. Treat Tao members as real brothers and sisters and love each other because you are all children of Lao-Mu. Okay, you are all part of Lao-Mu. Do not discriminate against each other, dislike each other, and speak evil behind one another's back. Right, you all need to guide Tao members with the truth, the principle, and to cultivate truly, regardless of whether they are rich or poor. You should not have a discriminating or this dualistic heart that I'm talking about. Right, so again, this is because everyone, it doesn't matter whether rich or poor or whatever our social status or anything like that, we all have that Buddha nature. We all have that divine nature. And so because of that, we are all equal. In the eyes of God, we are all equal, right? In the eyes of the Buddhas, we are all equal. And so that's how we try to view things, right? So again, it's beyond the surface. Don't look at the surface. When we look at the surface, we still need to distinguish, but that's at the surface. But then we have to treat everyone as if they're equal. Okay, so that's the key. Okay, so being a senior in Tao society, the senior being one who's come before us in the Tao or who's cultivating, and obviously they've probably been in it longer. You need to be generous, have a big capacity to tolerate everything, and to guide the juniors, who are the new people coming in all the time. Everyone works together to propagate Tao. A real man of character needs to suit his actions according to the timing and to know when to advance and retreat. Be tolerant and be flexible when it is necessary. Take all kinds of journeys to propagate Tao without complaint and regret, regardless of hardship and difficulty. You need to be cautious when praised. Be happy and humble to accept people's criticism. Make a prompt decision to correct your mistakes. Thus, you really can be a true cultivator, a mainstay or pillar of heaven, and a good example for sentient beings. Okay, so again, it's to show those virtues, to cultivate those virtues, practice those virtues, right? No matter, yes, this journey, right? So we open the door, the Holy Teacher opened the door for us, then we have to take this journey. It's a personal journey, although we don't have to necessarily take it alone. Okay, there are all cultivators, everyone in the temple, in this Tao community, everyone is in this together. We're all cultivating. We can help each other. Okay, and there will definitely be difficulties along the way. It's just not like, oh, we received this blessing and then life is going to be smooth sailing from here on. It's not going to be like that, right? Later on, God says that in order to become like a Buddha, we have to go through tests and trials. That's Jesus, same thing. If we can overcome those tests and trials, overcome those temptations, then we can achieve. Okay, we have achieved. All right, so that's very important. So that's why when we have setbacks, we have failures, we don't give up. We can't give up. I mean, if we give up, then it's kind of throwing it away. What we got, this blessing, we throw it away, and that's kind of a waste. And we have to wait till the next time when we might have this opportunity, which we have no idea when that might be. Okay, so right now we have this opportunity. Seize it. Don't let go, and do the best we can. Okay. So when people criticize us, it's hard to take sometimes, but as long as we are grateful in dealing with it, right? We're very grateful, thankful, and we self-reflect, okay, introspect. That's also one of the keys to cultivation. Always looking within, not saying blaming others or whatever. It's looking at ourselves. What can I do to improve myself, make better? Even though maybe the blame is falsely placed, and I'm not to blame, but that's okay. It doesn't matter, right? If I can accept it, and then it'll make the situation better, right? Then it'll dissolve any kind of potential conflict. Okay, so if I fight back or argue back, create some conflict, then we've kind of created potential bad karma. Okay, and then that will just perpetuate. All right, so that's why the teachings say always forgive and forget, right? Turn the other cheek. That's the idea behind that, is to not create any more karma, that vicious cycle. Okay, to break that cycle. So we have to. That's hard to do, but that's something that we have to work on. All right. Being a junior, right, you need to respect the seniors, follow the truth by staying with the seniors, and be of one mind to coordinate with them peacefully and harmoniously. Being a senior, you need to do your best to guide and promote the juniors, to lead them to cultivate Tao truly, and to influence and reform them with your generous heart. Now is the time of emergency. Okay, each one of you should pledge great vows and do the best to march ahead. Do not disappoint. My admonishment to you. No one is a saint, and all humans make mistakes. However, you need to correct your mistakes immediately. Do not make the same mistakes again. It is difficult to return to heaven when not correcting your mistakes, or even while you are making them on purpose. Okay, so obviously, when we do something wrong or we shouldn't do, or and maybe people point it out to us, and if we're not aware, then people might point it out to us, and then we need to correct ourselves. Right? If we keep repeating the same mistake, then we haven't learned anything. We haven't improved. Okay, so then, and especially if we know that we're wrong, and we keep doing it, that's worse. Okay, because then there's intent. All right, so we need to always correct it. That's why that self-reflection, the introspection, is very important. What we just said earlier. All right. Now's the time of emergency. Basically, in this world today, we see that it's very perilous. Okay, war can break out at any time, right? So when these disasters happen, whether it's man-made or human or natural disasters, it can be too late, right? And we don't want to get caught up in those disasters and lose our lives. And so, while we still have the chance, while things are still good, we need to cultivate, right? It's usually they're lazy, right? So it's like when good times, I can put this off, wait until later to cultivate, to practice, to improve myself. But then when the time comes, disaster strikes, it's really too late. So we can't have that type of mentality. We need to seize the moment. Every moment we need to do the best we can. Okay. Right. So suppose someone performed the merit, but after that he made a mistake, then the prior merit would be canceled. Okay, so that's very important. So suppose he made a mistake before he had performed the merit, then the fault and merit could be counterbalanced. If he can correct his previous mistakes and then build up merits, heaven will not hide his merits, which will be clearly recorded. Nothing will be left out. Heaven will not disappoint virtuous and able talents. Those who have more merits than faults are clearly witnessed by heaven. They will receive what rewards they deserve, while those whose faults are more than their merits will be listed for disasters. Okay, so the detailed accounts are counted in this way. You will be called a person of great ability and tremendous potential when you had known to correct mistakes before merits were built. So, again, as we're cultivating, so when we cultivate, okay, ideally we're accumulating merits, but we should not, at the same time, we should not be committing more faults or making mistakes, committing, sins, etc., because then that kind of wipes out the merits that we have accumulated. So it's important. That's why repentance, right, correcting ourselves, that's very important. We have to do that, right? It's constant. Unfortunately, it's a constant process, but gradually as long as we are making progress, okay, there might be times that we set back, but at least if we take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, you're making progress, okay? So it's not how fast, right? Everyone has different karma. So everyone's karma is different. The difficulties that you'll encounter will be different. But the key is to have that resolve, that determination to say, I want to progress. Okay, no matter what, no matter how long it takes. Okay, I just do my best to improve. All right, and that is really the most important thing. Okay, it's not really the end result in this life. You know, how much have I improved? But really, did I really put in that effort, that sincere effort to improve myself? Yeah.
So I was going to say that's part of the awakening.
Yeah, you can say that that's the awakening. So awakening is not necessarily at that moment, that instant that you have an awakening. It could take time. Okay, so after receiving the blessing, not necessarily. Most people are not awakened in that instant. Okay, don't realize how precious this thing is. It does take time. So that realization. Okay, so the Tao is not the knowledge that it's given to you, but it's experienced. Okay, you have to go through that experience yourself to realize. So Buddha himself, no one taught him. He went to gurus that were teaching him all sorts of ways, methods, things, practices. But ultimately, that awakening process is through himself. Okay, so we all have to go through the same thing. It's just that when we receive the blessing, yeah, it's a quicker way to point us out. But then we still have to go through that process. Okay.
Well, there are many levels to awaken.
Yeah,
Yeah. So in a sense, we could be awakened. We have this. What the heck is that term? Aha moment. You read aha moment. Epiphany. Yeah, but the question is, are you in that eternal state, constant state of epiphany? I doubt it.
Right.
Most
So
of us are
yeah,
not.
right.
So that's why that's not the highest. The highest is when Buddha was awakened under the Bodhi tree, or just like Jesus was awakened, right? When he was awakened.
Yeah.
Every thought, every word, every action is in accordance with that awakened state. So that's how you ask yourself. Yeah. So every moment, every thought, every word, every action, am I in that state? So if we're not, then we're not really awakened.
Right.
Okay? We're not absolute. That's the highest level. Right. So there are different levels. But that's why we say cultivate. And you say self-reflect. That's a way of internal introspection, asking. That's really a form of meditation if you want to look at it. That can be a form of meditation. Dhyana in Sanskrit, okay? And then the highest level would be samadhi. That's like, you can say, almost like Anutara Samyak Sambodhi. Almost that level. You can say that. But they're just different levels. They just know that. So it's not that, I need to have that one moment. Then that's the wrong approach. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's not like, we tend to seek the shortcut, right? The instant gratification or whatever, to achieve instantly. But any kind of practice. When we're training, right? We're exercise. It's not like you can just do one exercise and you're done. No, you have to keep doing it. So same thing, cultivation. And yeah, like Kai was saying, we want to achieve the state where we're always at that level, where we're not like we go up here and then we're awakened for a little while and then our anger comes up again. So we need to try to achieve that constant level. That's like a Buddha. Okay, or
You want to be alert all the time.
Yeah, so always awareness, mindfulness, right?
Mindful.
Right. So that's why that's part of that self-reflection, right? We're always looking or aware of our own, not just actions and words, but our thoughts as well, because thoughts create all the other things. So basically, always be aware. All right. So that's
Buddha's instant awakening. It's also the result of so many years.
that's true. Yeah.
Of accumulation.
Yeah.
For us, it's instant. For them, it's accumulation
Right.
over the time.
Right. Okay. Since ancient times, it has never been an easy thing to cultivate this great Tao. Lao-Mu grant a special favor and new arrangement to make the Tao cultivation and trials become not as strict and hard as before. Okay, so therefore, Tao cultivation becomes easier than before and not necessary to encounter too many trials and calamities. It is truly hard to work to propagate Tao everywhere and guide people to receive Tao, though I will surely bestow the heavenly position per your hard work and effort. Right, so in the past, how people cultivated it was very difficult. Obviously, they don't have all the conveniences that we have today, okay? And for them to receive this Tao or the blessing was very difficult. It's not everyone can do that. So today we have temples, and as long as you have that affinity that you can receive it. Okay. But in the past, they had to prove themselves that they were worthy, prove themselves worthy. That they had the virtues to be able to do that. And so that's why it was much more difficult back then. And very few people can get it. But today, it's kind of reversed, where because, again, the timing of things, all these calamities are happening, disasters, that God is allowing people to first receive this blessing and then to cultivate. Okay. All right. All right. So even though you are suffering all the hardships in order to save sentient beings, the more bitter experiences you have received, the more merits you will build up. Heaven is taking notice of these things, big or small. These merits are also a matter of honor and pride for you. During the process of Tao cultivation, guiding people to receive Tao, even though you may be slandered or despised, when the time comes, it will be very clear who are the virtuous and the wise and who are the foolish. All right, you need to swallow insults even though people wrong you. There is no need to debate. Heaven will claim judgment and will evaluate and support you in justice. Yeah, so ultimately, we don't need to try to prove ourselves to other people, right? We do what's right, what's expected of us, what we should do, okay, in accordance with our conscience, and heaven will support us, okay? So ultimately that we are judged by heaven, okay? So don't be worried about being judged by people. Yeah, a lot of the saints and sages in history, right, they've been judged by people, and they've been vilified, they've been slandered, all sorts of things, but yet they did the right thing. They did what they should have done. Okay, so and ultimately they get the reward from heaven. All right, so silently give your contribution without fighting or competition. Guard your pure heart and cultivate your true nature. Thus you will reach Buddhahood for sure. Even though you are receiving tests and trials, whether your life runs smoothly or have much adversity, you should know that you cannot reach Buddhahood without being tested. Even now, the devil looks strong while the benevolent looks weak. However, it is the time to calculate the accounts and pay up the bills of karma. All the devils will be cleared away. So it's very important that we need to, right? It mentions, again, one of Confucius's followers says that, to maintain a pure heart and cultivate that true nature, that divine nature within us, follow our conscience. Okay, so we have to become like a child, in essence, right? The purity and innocence of a child. But yeah, so there are many temptations, many trials during this time, especially the internet age, right? All sorts of things that can distract us. But we should use our wisdom. Again, use our wisdom. The only way to have our wisdom, develop our wisdom, is to let go of desires, let go of that conscious, that self. All right, then that wisdom naturally, we already have it. Just let it come out. Okay, then it will guide us to do the right thing. Okay, so again, this is what I mentioned earlier. Yeah, that we cannot achieve the highest level or result without going through these tests. Okay, so we all have to be tested. All right. So since the ancient times, those who genuinely practice the truth have been receiving all kinds of trials and tests, and the higher their virtues, the more difficult for them to be accepted and understood by common people. Instead, they have received more slanders. This is not because they have bad karma. How could they be qualified to reach Buddhahood if they have no profound spiritual foundation? Those who are less blessed are less resolute in mind. It is sure that they cannot cultivate Tao sincerely, even though they have received Tao. They will retreat when trials and tests arrive. It is difficult for them to reach Buddhahood and return to the heavenly home. Yeah, so again, when we encounter these difficulties and tests and trials, we can't give up. We have to face it. And as long as we do it with a grateful heart, with not in a confrontational way, right? We do it, again, using our virtues to try to overcome these difficulties, then we will have passed that test, all right? And then we can go on, right? Okay, do not laugh at the true Tao cultivators who look like fools. They are the people with their feet on solid ground. They put the truth into action. They are the extraordinary people who are building up merits and virtues. They will become famous in the world in the future. Have a look at saints, right? Confucianism, you have Confucius. Buddhism, you have Buddha, Sakyamuni Buddha. Taoism, you have Lao-Tzu. Misspelled there. When they were propagating Tao to humankind, they all suffered countless hardships. However, they eventually received the most wonderful blessings, right? They were carefree and without having worldly desires. For more than 3,000 years until now, they are still respected by heaven and the people of the world. Right? They reached Buddhahood in heaven and left a good reputation in the world. What an honor and glory it is. Okay, so that's obviously even the founders, you can say, of these traditions, they all achieved that status, that level. But it was not without a lot of difficulties. and hardships. Okay, so, and again, the hardships that they encounter are much worse than what we can encounter today, right? All right, so, and then this final paragraph is that at that time, okay, universal Tao propagation had not been started yet. What had been done was only to check and perfect what was still incomplete with the Tao Pan, which is the mantle of Tao propagation. Okay, the three saints have already received such an honor for their work. All this is saying nothing about the universal propagation of Tao in the three worlds, right? That's the world of the devas. It's a spiritual world. Okay, typically what we say saints, and then the human world and also the underworld. Okay, so heaven is selecting 3,600 saints and 48,000 sages. Every one of them is to enjoy the awe-inspiring and solemn white year. So this is the period of time that we're in. It's called the white year. They will be carefree and heavenly blessed for 10,800 years in heaven and respected by human beings. It is easy to imagine and get to understand how the results will be different if you do cultivate Tao sincerely and truly. Those who are actually cultivating Tao will become saints and sages. What is emphasized is true cultivation. Okay, those who can build up merits and virtues, glorify their ancestors, and shelter descendants will have everlasting virtues. Those who can act on my decree can reach glorious Buddhahood, while those who do not follow my instruction will fall into the bottomless abyss. Okay, I will stop my admonishment here. I'll let the holy mediums have a rest, and I will continue. Okay, so we're in a time of universal propagation, which means, again, I mentioned this earlier, that everyone has this chance. At least those who have the affinity to be able to come to receive that blessing. That in the past, again, it's not everyone. Okay, so basically, God is encouraging us. Yeah, we need to, once we are in here, we receive the blessing, we cultivate. Yeah, we have to cultivate. And we can start off. Of course, we have to manage our human affairs, right? Our family, our home, etc., work. But there should be some kind of a balance, right? We also allocate some time to the spiritual aspect, to this cultivation, right? That's really, again, ultimately we want to kind of try to emphasize the spiritual more, because ultimately that's what will matter the most when we leave this world. Okay, so so these are God's instructions to us in this seventh sermon. And any questions? Okay, so because time is up, if I had said anything wrong, I ask God and the Buddhists for forgiveness and your corrections. Okay, thank you.